Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Matt Stemmler, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Well, thanks for having me. This is a fun experience so far.
You drove all the way from where to?
Stafford.
Stafford. Took you about an hour.
Yeah, about an hour.
I appreciate you making the drive.
I prefer this over just doing over Zoom or Skype or phone. There's something about the personal human-to-human connection versus
Being in each other's physical presence.
Yeah, especially even like I'm terrible with the phone. Like I think I told you this before. Like the least used app on my phone is the phone app.
Wow.
Just like visual cues. Like if I'm talking on the phone, I always have the habit of like you don't know when to step in kind of deal. Like oh no go ahead kind of deal. But versus when you're in person, like
you don't tell when somebody's about to
exactly
talking.
Yeah,
all the nonverbal stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right, how did we reconnect? Because you and I knew each other many years
ago.
Yeah. But we've reconnected to do this podcast episode. How did that happen?
So I was putting my kids down to bed, and I got a message from a buddy of mine I deployed with back in 2004, Jason Barnhouse. And he was like, "Hey, do you know Paul Gilman?" I was like, "Name sounds familiar." It was like a Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, haven't heard that name in a long time, or whatever the quote is. And I was like, he said you're an engineer, and I was like, so I was thinking, or a 229th engineer guy, and I was like, trying to think back, because that's where I started my career. And I was like, it doesn't ring a bell. And then it clicked where I knew you from. It was from the 183rd RTI as an infantry instructor. And then he mentioned O'Farrell, and I was like, oh yeah, me and Jim like go way back. Like he was my recruiter, best friend for the longest time. As time went on, life happens.
Sure.
We actually haven't. I need to link back up with him because I haven't actually talked to him in years. But great guy. In fact, the house I live in now used to be his. I bought it from him after the 08 deployment.
Yeah, it's amazing. Jim's a really good dude.
Yeah.
I didn't know him that well until we got a chance to do what you and I are doing right now, and he's just you need a lot more Jim O'Farrells in the world. I think we'd be a much better place.
Yeah, he was my platoon sergeant on my second deployment in Baghdad. In fact, I went on the deployment because of him. So I did a deployment in 2004. I was home for about 6 months, and he, at the time, was working in recruiting. He worked a deal to take a platoon to Baghdad, and he asked me a few times. He's like, hey, man, I want you on this deployment. And at the time, I just got back, and I was trying to do college, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? I'd feel horrible, like, if something happened to him, and, like, I wasn't there kind of deal.
Yeah.
So I signed on and went to Baghdad, and, yeah, it was a blast. It was good times.
All right, let's back all the way up. Where'd you grow up?
All over. So, military brat. So my dad did 31 years in the Coast Guard.
Okay.
So I was born in Cape May.
How tall is your dad?
Inch or two taller than me, I guess.
I thought they all had to be like 6'3", so when
their honor guard is. So that's a rule for their honor guard. Apparently, it's like the tallest in all the services or something.
Well, you've not heard the joke about the Coast Guard? They all have to be a certain height, so when the ships sink, they can walk ashore.
I think I've heard a few of those jokes over my lifetime.
Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Yeah. So Cape May, New Jersey, is where I was born, and then moved to.
Cape May's a cool place.
It is. I didn't really. We moved when I was 2.
Yeah.
So I didn't get experience too much of it at the time. We moved to Southern California, like the Los Angeles area, and then Northern Michigan, then New Orleans, then I spent a year back in New Jersey when my parents separated, and my dad got stationed in Connecticut, so I went up there, lived with him, and then he finished his career in Virginia, and that's how I ended up here.
Okay. And so your high school years were here in Virginia?
Half. I spent freshman and sophomore years in Connecticut, and then moved here my junior year, which super fun as a teenage kid.
Connecticut's a very different place than Virginia.
It is. As I've grown up, it's funny because I've kind of lost contact with most of my friends from Connecticut, but as you grow up and you learn politics and you see how different people's, I guess, thought processes are. I look at some of the Connecticut and I'm like, how was that ever me? Like I used to be anti-gun the whole 9 yards, and then like moved to Virginia, joined the Army, and I'm like, yeah, how was I ever like that?
Yeah, Connecticut's always struck me as, and I'm not trying to offend the people that live in Connecticut or consider Connecticut home, but it seems to have a giant bubble around the whole state, or at least most part of the state. The part closest to New York.
I was gonna say a lot of New York influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good times. One of my good friends, he married a young lady from Connecticut. She may or may not listen to this. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly was not trying to be offensive. That's cool. But you landed in a really good spot.
Yeah. I definitely like it here. It's sometimes I'd like to be more further away from DC.
Sure. Who wouldn't?
Right. I think there was a study recently where they said like the Fredericksburg corridor is like the worst traffic in America.
It's definitely top 3.
Yeah, which surprised me because like I've driven through Atlanta and
LA.
Yeah.
Both awful.
But Fredericksburg apparently it's right up there.
Yeah. Well, the problem with Atlanta, I used to work down there. They have 3 interstates coming together in the city. I'm like, who thought that was a good idea?
Like 18-lane highway.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I can see, because you've been in Fredericksburg to DC traffic plenty of times like I have. You get to the end of the congestion, you're like, what caused this?
100%. I'm like, why? What?
Now we have space. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, it drives me insane.
Yeah, I when I'm a better version of myself, I'm like, I can't control this. It is what it is. Oh, it's raining today. I'm going to be mad at the rain. I can't control it.
Yeah.
Why am I getting mad?
Even at one point, a few years ago, before I started my current job, I worked in King George, and I was hesitant to take that job at first because it was like a 40-minute commute. But then I realized everything in Northern Virginia is a 40-minute commute. At least this was peaceful, no traffic.
Yeah.
I could throw on a podcast and I just do it kind of deal versus being angry in traffic for 40 minutes.
5 miles takes you 40 minutes.
Correct. Yeah.
In many parts of Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Luckily, I live in a good spot because in Stafford, basically, depending on how traffic is, depends on what I'm going to do. So, like, I'm in between Fredericksburg and Woodbridge, and they both have the same things. So it's like, oh, traffic is bad north, we'll go to Fredericksburg, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So that works out.
That does work out. I guess you got to do what you got to do. Right. Yeah, it's weird. And Fredericksburg is kind of blown up.
It has, yeah.
Weirdly so.
Yeah. Well, even Stafford, like everywhere, it seems like I'll drive by and I'm like, that wasn't there before. Like,
I guess it's just, well, I think it's 2 things. One, the population of the country and the world is growing, but you also have just DC and the government just getting bigger and bigger over time, and you're gonna
that and what I've seen in Northern Virginia now is like all these data centers and everything else has become a hub.
Yeah.
So all those jobs are coming in, and they're building all that stuff, and yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't do it. I couldn't live in Northern Virginia.
You get used to it, and you learn in some where it's available, like taking back roads and stuff like that. But, yeah, it sometimes I wish I wasn't there.
I mean, I'm sure the people are lovely in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
In fact, I know a lot of people from Northern Virginia. They're great people, but I don't know how they tolerate the traffic.
That, and then even just like home values. Like, I think my Facebook was trolling me one time because like we're looking at Zillow, looking at all this stuff, and you know, my Facebook. So like, you look at a house, it doesn't seem that big, and it costs like $500,000.
Yeah.
And then like on Facebook, it was like, this is what $400,000 would get you in Tennessee, and it was like a mansion. I'm like, we should move to Tennessee.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even where we are right now,
yeah,
the same house is going to be probably 50-60% higher in Northern Virginia. And when I say Northern Virginia, I think I mean everything north of Fredericksburg, or maybe I mean even closer into Tennessee.
So like Prince William County, if you look at like house values there, again, like what you'll get for $500,000, you'll get way more down in like Spotsylvania or Fredericksburg. It's a matter of, do you want to commute if you live up there? And that's really what the debate comes down to. Do you want to deal with the traffic and gas money, or do you want to live closer?
Yeah, it's a tough choice.
Yeah.
But you got to do what you got to do too.
Yeah.
All right, so when you were in high school, what kind of kid were you?
Mostly athlete. Kind of shy because again, what sucks, like looking back, it was a good experience living all over the country growing up. But also it sucked because like
it's tough.
Every 2 to 4 years I was starting over, making new friends, and like I said, splitting high school in half was real tough. So I got to Virginia and I'm just kind of like a junior, and everybody's known each other for at least most people start high school, they finish high school in the same place, so that they've at least known each other that long. And so the way I fit in was through sports.
Yeah.
It was funny because so in my freshman year of high school, I took 4th in the state in wrestling. And then sophomore year, I took 3rd. And it kind of sucked because, like, the dude I lost to in the state tournament, he was a senior, and he won it. So, like, it was almost like I'm next in line, and then ended up getting pulled away to go to Virginia.
Yeah.
But again, like, luckily my dad did his research, whatever. when we got to Woodbridge, I went to Woodbridge High School, and he found, the wrestling team was doing like summer workouts. So immediately I jumped into that stuff. In fact, I kind of developed a kind of funny story. Kind of, I don't know if it's cringy now looking back on it, but like, I had like a Clark Kent Superman kind of deal. Like I've since gotten LASIK and everything, so like I can see now. Back then, like I couldn't see anything. In fact, my teammates would make fun of me. Like halfway, third period of a wrestling match, I'm squinting to look at the clock, see how much time's left. But like when I got there for open workouts, like I had these nerdy glasses on, and like my buddy told me after the fact, he was like, "This guy was third in the state, like this nerd." But then like he went upstairs to the wrestling room. I changed, went up there, and it was, like Clark Kent to Superman is like, "Oh, this guy, okay."
Yeah.
And that just kind of stayed with me through the rest of high school or whatever.
You needed another nickname to go with, instead of Clark Kent, you were.
It was like Super Stem. Well, and then I guess it didn't help that I pole vaulted, so I flew.
Nice.
Yes, that was fun too.
Do you have a Superman tattoo?
I do.
For our listening audience, he has a Superman tattoo on his right shoulder.
Well,
Oh man, that's
how I
awesome.
got that. Like again, I had that kind of nickname in high school.
Sure.
And then I did on my first deployment to Iraq. I came home for my 2 weeks of leave in the summer, and I'd already been shot at and blown up by an IED, so I was already feeling like invincible, and I had the nickname already, so I was like, let's do it. And I was on leave because I was stupid. I was like, yeah, let's get a tattoo.
It's what you do on leave.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a tiny little Superman tattoo, but
you're not going to see it unless you're at the pool or the beach or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Or in a cage fighting people.
Do you have a lot of tattoos?
I just got that one, and I got this one.
Okay.
So it's a Spartan helmet with like the American flag.
Yeah, no, I like that one. Yeah, nice. So wrestlers have always, look, another quick joke about wrestlers. As you know, I'm a tall guy. Not surprisingly, I played basketball in high school, and I always just say wrestlers were just guys that weren't tall enough to play basketball. But that's obviously not true, because wrestlers are the toughest people I know.
100%. Like I would say, like, if you were to start a kid in a sport, I'd start with wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, it builds discipline, the work ethic, and not only that, but independence, I'd say, because at the end of the day, like a team sport, basketball, you can blame something on somebody else, like,
Sure.
Oh, he didn't catch the pass I threw, or whatever, right?
You can hide.
Yeah. Wrestling, it's mano a mano. It's you and the other guy.
You own every bit of it.
Yep.
The good and the bad.
It's a team sport in the sense that like you're training together, and then there's team points for like wins or whatever. But it's just you on the mat by yourself, and
you're wearing a singlet, which is like,
very
right.
Not allowed to hide. No hiding. But also it's so, I guess, human nature in the sense that like fighting in war has been human nature, and like who's tougher than who kind of deal, and like you get to prove you're tougher than that other guy.
Yeah. And it also teaches people how to endure struggling.
Oh yeah.
In fact, it's probably one of the best things you can do for a kid is to put them in an environment where they're going to have to struggle a little bit and then work through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and on top of that, like now things have changed since back in my day, but like the weight cutting aspect, like having to maintain a specific weight in order to compete, that takes discipline. Like that takes a lot of hard work.
It's also
discipline.
brutal.
So brutal. I started off like not knowing what I was doing as a freshman, and like doing it completely wrong, like anorexic kind of deal. Like I can't eat because I got this wrestling, and over time, through wrestling, and then I became an MMA fighter. I got it down to a science. Like even by my senior year, I learned, and this is just me, my how my dumb brain works, was say I wrestled 125 that year. So it'd be like the day of a match. All right, I weigh 125.5. All right, let me go to the cafeteria at lunchtime. I grab my food, whatever it might be. I'd step on the scale holding the food. And if I'm still on weight, or if I'm still like, a pound off or whatever, like no matter what, between this plate and my stomach, the weight's not going to change.
Yeah.
So same with like water. Like that's the worst, because you're always dehydrated when you're cutting weight, at least if you're doing it wrong. And so like, oh man, I'm like a pound under. Let me see how much this water weighs. All right, I'm holding it. I'm still on weight. I can drink all of this water right now. And so like that was my dumb science back then. And then as it progressed, I learned how to, I guess, trick my body. So I learned over time, with an MMA fight, you have a lot more time. It's not a season.
Yeah.
And so like I got to fight in 6 weeks. So I would basically trick my body. Like I would lose a pound a day, to where you don't even realize you're losing the weight. So like say I went into practice weighing 160, in a typical practice, I'd lose 4 pounds because you're doing wrestling, you're doing Muay Thai, you're doing
all sweat,
jiu-jitsu.
yeah.
Yeah. So if I weighed 160 today, tomorrow I'm going to show up 159 and lose 4 pounds. And the next day I'll show up 158. And that way I could still eat, still drink, and then like just kind of gradually do it.
Yeah.
And weight cutting became easy.
And you stayed healthy and you stayed strong through that.
And then I think the UFC's made this illegal now, or a lot of pro MMA has, but like being in the Army, both my brother fought too. He did Muay Thai, I did MMA. And after weigh-ins, infantrymen who are CLS qualified might have access to IVs.
Tell the audience what CLS is.
So combat lifesaver course. So I don't know how it's run now, but back when I was in the Army, basically it was like not a medic, but it gave you kind of some advanced medical skills. One of which used to be, I think they got away from it, but being able to administer IVs.
Right.
So we had that skill, and we had the equipment, and it was a quick way to rehydrate. So like,
yeah,
I usually fought at 145, and usually weigh-ins were the night before. So like 24 hours to rehydrate. I would step in the cage about 165 in 24 hours.
Wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. But again, so going back, like that discipline, like being able to make weight. I've never missed weight. In all my years of wrestling and MMA, like never missed weight.
Because you're locked in.
Yeah, it's that discipline.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it carries over to other parts of your life too.
Yeah, if you can be disciplined while you're getting punched in the face, you can be disciplined for things where you're not being punched in the face.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe I should talk to you about cutting weight because
I don't do it anymore.
No, it's all good. Well, but you could do it if you wanted to.
Right.
But you're not preparing your body for anything like
it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't have the need or the desire because I put myself 20 years of my life I cut weight, so I don't have that desire to do that anymore. And it's funny if you look at like retired Navy SEALs and all these other people who are like, they've all put on a lot of weight because you're so disciplined for so long that you're just like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's kind of where I'm at now. Like I still work out, I play hockey and stuff like that, but like
you stay active.
Yeah.
You want to stay strong as you age.
But if I needed to drop 15 pounds, like maybe not maintain it, but if I needed to drop it, I'm sure I could.
Yeah. Connecticut high school wrestlers back when you were in high school versus Virginia high school wrestlers.
Virginia was better.
Is it just because Virginia's got more kids and?
It might be the DC connection because this becomes a hub for government and military, so like you get a lot of talent that also comes here.
Yeah.
And even in my case, like I came to Virginia, like I feel bad for a buddy of mine. He was a sophomore when I was a junior, and it was one of those things where like he wrestled. So my junior year I wrestled 119, so he was 112 the year before. So he's like, all right, next year I'm gonna be 119. Out of nowhere, I show up and just take a spot.
Oh, that's
and it's
brutal.
like, yeah. So and that happens, like I said, because military transfers, and it's like, oh wow, this kid's really good. He came from Texas. He came from wherever.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. Another part is size of schools. So in Connecticut, I think my graduating class, if I stayed there, was like 86 people.
Oh, that's tiny.
Yeah. Here in Virginia, it was 595.
Oh God.
At Woodbridge High School. I'm sure it's more than that now.
Yeah.
But so different size. So again, you bigger pool to draw from of like better athletes, I guess. In fact, so yeah, I placed first 2 years in Connecticut. I got to Virginia, and life lesson. So a week before districts, I got my eyes on states. A week before districts, I wrestled this kid from our rival high school. Good dude, really like tough guy. Like he was a favorite for states kind of deal. He beat me by 1 point. In fact, I spent like this whole second period on my back fighting off a pin, and it literally broke him. Like even seeing him after the match, like he was like distraught. Like this kid did this. Like how did I not crush this kid? So get to districts. I'm on one end of the bracket. He's on the other. So that's finals. I'm gonna get him in the finals. First match, I was like, oh, I beat this guy 2 weeks ago. I lost.
Oh,
I overlooked him.
Yeah.
And so I get to the consolation brackets. Like, all right, whatever. I'll take third. I'll get him at regionals. I beat this, and it was another like, oh, I beat this kid 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I lost. So I was out in 0-2.
The lesson is be in the moment.
Yeah, and
be focused in the moment.
Be in the moment, and like don't overlook people like that. Just because you beat them before, like
it doesn't mean anything.
I'm on their radar, like, oh, I'm gonna get him back, kind of deal. Just like how I looked at the other guy.
They were super motivated to beat you.
And I was like, oh, this is nothing. I'm looking at the finals, and never made it to the finals.
Yeah, I had a guy tell me once, he goes, your mindset, as you mature and age, you figure these things out, but he's like, you have to leave no doubt every single time.
Yeah.
Like you are all the way in every single time.
Yeah.
You don't do these mind tricks to yourself that cause you to lose to somebody you shouldn't lose to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great life lesson.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then senior year, I won districts. I was second in the region. I took second. The guy was ranked 7th in the nation. And I was totally intimidated. Like I went out there and just got pinned in like 30 seconds.
But it's a thing.
Yeah. When really like looking back, I'm like, he wasn't that good. Like I could have taken him. It's just I was intimidated.
You were on the other end of the spectrum with the mind game.
Exactly. It was almost like I don't deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And in the finals with this kid kind of deal. And yeah, so he destroyed me. And then I think I took
a number with the word national.
Right.
Messed you up.
Yeah. Like I think I pinned everybody going into the finals. So like I really meant to be there. Like I should have been there, but I got there and was like,
Underdogs win, man.
Yeah. But again, I was 18.
Yeah. Your brain doesn't fully form until you're 25 or so.
Well, and again, life lessons. It's like now that's seared in my brain. Like, don't get intimidated. You got this kind of deal.
Yeah.
And even that, that's carried on throughout my military career. Like I've done so much in my military career where like most people, I look at like other active duty people, like, some people look at like the badges on the chest, right? I was explaining to somebody, it was like, you might see some people, air assault's a common one. You'll see a lot of people with like 1, maybe 2 badges. I had 5 on my chest.
Yeah.
Just because like I had those things seared in my brain at an early age. And it's like, I could do this. I could do this.
Yeah, just go do it.
Yeah. But yeah, and then senior year, I ended up taking, I think, 8th in the state. So yeah, after second in the region, I was like 8th in the state, something like that.
Did you get better as you got older?
Yeah.
Just competition also got better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, that happens. All right, so you're in your senior year. What was the idea after high school, after graduation?
So I was a senior during 9/11.
Okay.
At the time, my dad was pushing.
So that September was your senior year.
Yep.
Okay.
In fact, we lost one of my classmates lost her father in the Pentagon.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So it hit close to home. So the military was definitely on the radar, kind of deal. My dad
was it on the radar before 9/11?
A little bit. So my dad. So when we were in Connecticut, he was stationed at the Coast Guard Academy, and so he was pushing really hard for me to go to the Coast Guard Academy. I think I missed it by like 40 math SAT points. But as cool as that would have been, I don't think I wasn't as excited about going there as he was. He wanted me to go there, kind of deal. But like I knew the wrestling coach from Connecticut, like, so I had a little bit of connections, but like I just didn't make the SAT points. And so yeah, the military was kind of there. And then like I think that was the same year like Black Hawk Down came out. And so like I was like, oh, that looks really fun. And I was motivated to go to war, the whole 9 yards. And so like I finished high school. I think I did some research over the summer, and then I chose the National Guard instead of going active, which, looking back again, no regrets, but it was one of those things where like people.
You chose the Guard in part because Jim O'Farrell was your recruiter?
Well, he was very convincing. Well, part of it was like the concept, like, and everybody's like in my ear about like, oh, you need to go to college, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so I was like, oh, well, I can go to college, and then with the Guard I can get 2 retirements. So like I was trying to think long term, I guess. And all in all, like I said, I had no regrets with the Guard. In fact, I've seen a lot of more positive things come from the Guard than I've seen from active duty side. Just in the people, the skills, the abilities, personalities.
People in the Guard tend to be more well-rounded.
Yeah. Well, especially like you think an infantryman, active duty, out of high school, you're 18. That's all you know is to be a grunt. And then say you get out after 4 years, you're 22 with no skills other than no applicable skills.
Unless you become a military contract
guy.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, but in the Guard, like when I was in Iraq in 2004, we had a guy who was AC repairman, hot commodity in 2004.
Oh yeah.
In fact, they were sending him to other units. I think we were in Mosul. They sent him to Baghdad to like fix people's ACs and come back, kind of deal. Like,
which unit was that?
That was 276 engineers.
Okay. That was the you were in Mosul, right?
Yep. Yeah. We could talk about that. Yeah. That the whole how that all happened was kind of interesting too, because you were a 229th engineer guy, right? Yeah. So that's where I started, and we ended up going with them. But yeah. So senior year military, 9/11. Yeah, so I was pretty motivated, and then yeah, September, right after summer, I enlisted, and
You enlisted your senior year or the following
the
September?
summer, yeah. So after I graduated, and I wanted to go infantry because again, like seeing Black Hawk Down, the whole 9 yards, like I want to be a ranger, and I think I even told O'Farrell, I was like, what's the fastest way I can get to war? And at the time,
not a lot of people are asking that.
Yeah. At the time, it was engineer. And also, and at the time, it didn't make sense. But now that I have 21 years behind me and like seeing how recruiting works, I think at the time infantry was full. And especially now that I know how the guard works, there's only a set amount of slots. It's not like active duty. We're like, yeah, we'll find you a slot somewhere.
Right.
Like if all the infantry units don't have a slot, then yeah, it's full.
Yeah.
So combat engineer was the next closest thing. I think at the time I was thinking MP because growing up I wanted to be a cop as well. And so I was like, oh, MP cop, that makes sense. And O'Farrell was like, no, you don't want to do that.
No offense to all the MP folks out there.
Yeah. Well, it's just it's not what you think it is, as I've learned too.
Yeah.
You're not, especially in the guard, like you're not going to be like a police officer.
No, not.
So yeah, so I ended up going combat engineer, and 6 months later, well, so that was September. I think I went to basic around like February, graduated on June 6th, D-Day.
Wow.
Which is great going back to 29th Infantry, like a lot of
yeah
there.
Ton.
And June 6th graduated as an E1. By December, I was an E4 heading to Iraq.
How did you get promoted that quickly?
I was a hard charger.
Wow.
Well,
I'm trying to think. I've been out for 10 years.
So apparently there's like I got waived for like E1, E2.
I guess they're waivers.
Yeah, I got waivers, a bunch of waivers. I think before we went to Iraq, they were trying to get a lot of us that were PFCs are trying to make us specialists to get paid more on the deployment and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been part of it, but also like I mean you knew Stockhausen.
Sure.
Bo Mason.
Yep.
They were 2 to 9th at the time. Like Mason was a butter bar at the time.
Yeah.
And I was motivated, hard charger, and like they saw that and got the waivers, I guess.
They saw it and loved it.
Yeah. Like those are the type of people that like that's what they want to see. They're hard chargers.
They're there to do what needs to be done based on the kind of unit you are and what the training set is and the missions. Yeah.
Well, and back then, so the 229th when I got there, we were the rear D because everybody was in Bosnia, I believe, and so. And with
Bravo Company was in Bosnia, and they probably had some headquarters guys.
Yeah, so there's only like 50 of us or so that were in the 229th at the time, and they ran it like an infantry unit. Like like again, you Stockhausen, Kraus, Bo Mason, like all those guys. Like it was run like an infantry unit.
And they were infantry guys first.
Yeah, exactly.
Their love is infantry.
Well, and it was one of those things that again I've now seen both sides of the coin on this in the guard where. They had the mindset, and it was instilled in me, and I carried it all the way through my whole career. Was you're here for a weekend, like leave home at home. Like we're here to train hard.
Yeah,
we're here to do work, and then you're gonna go home, and I'll see you next month. We'll do it again. And so when with my first deployment, what happened was 276 got the call to go to Iraq. They took basically whatever was left of 229th, all 50 something of us, and attached us to 276. We or transferred us to them.
And this was 02?
04.
Sorry.
So December of 03.
Yep.
Into 04. And so basically we got rolled into the.
That's right, because we weren't even in Iraq until March of 03. Right. Yeah.
So I was in basic training during that. Which is always fun because then the drill sergeant's like, oh, you're about to get hit you're going into war as soon as you leave here, and yeah, so it added that extra motivation, I guess.
Yeah.
Whether it was a bluff or not. So they rolled us into 276, and when I got there, and as sad as this is, Dave Ruin, one of the soldiers that was killed, on that deployment, me and him.
Because both Mason and Ruin came from 229.
Yeah. So we were all privates together. We all kind of came up the ranks together.
Yeah.
And I think it was Christmas drill right before we did the transfer. Their commander came over, talked to us, and like me and Dave looked at each other and we're like, we're gonna die. Like this is, and then he ended up dying. Not any fault of theirs. Like it was a terrible situation. Suicide bomber hit our chow hall.
Yeah. Were you in the chow hall at the time?
No. So by the grace of God, so with that transfer, the intent was to keep us all in Charlie 276. As we started the train up before we went to Fort Dix, I guess Alpha Company was short, so they took like 4 or 5 of us and moved us to Alpha. So I got moved away from them, which sucks because like they're my buddies. We came up the ranks together. But once we were in Missoula, like a lot of times I ate lunch with them. And I hung out with them when I could, kind of deal, depending on missions. And that day I was on a different base. I was in Talifar, which is like 30 miles west of Missoula, when it happened. So, and like I said, I ate lunch with them often. So who knows, borrowed time kind of deal. Like had I been there, who knows? In fact, Rich Hirsch, was one of the guys who got wounded. He was standing in the middle of them. He ended up losing his thumb. He had like tension pneumothorax. He got jacked up from it.
Yeah.
But I've hung out with him several times since, and in fact, funny story about that in a minute. But he said that Nick Mason saw the guy, like, so the way the base was set up, we had our chow hall, and across street was Iraqi National Guard compound, and so we shared the chow hall with them, whatever. And he said that Nick saw, basically, it was December 21st, so it's cold. In northern Iraq, it's really cold, and I guess he looked bulky, and I guess Nick was like, oh, he looked really bulky, like that's weird. Boom. Killed 19, wounded 90 something. Yeah, so 2 Virginia Guard soldiers died that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me more about Nick and Dave.
Again, cut from the same cloth, hard chargers. Like I said, we were all on the same path in terms of like promotions and just doing, like, Nick had aspirations to go special forces. Dave was kind of, he was a 50 cal gunner. I was a 50 cal gunner. So anytime like I got to shoot a car and get into a firefight, like I kind of tell him, and he get a little jealous, and it kind of go back and forth like that. So, yeah, it was just, it sucks. They were both 20. We were all 20 at the time.
Yeah.
So we're, yeah, again, same age group, like, and yeah, December 21st, which, like, even in terms of how much of a lasting impact that is, like, it makes you realize at a young age, like, life is short. In fact, so it happened 12:01 local time in Missoula, and pretty much every year since then, I wake up at 4:01 a.m. on that date, which is 8-hour difference.
Yeah.
And so it's weird.
That's really weird.
I've tried to even, like, I'll stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, and 4:01 I'm waking up.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's it's too young to die. Too young to lose friends like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's that reminder that life is short. Like, especially, I mean, in that type of job, like, it can happen any day. Like, I've gotten into firefights. My truck's been hit by an IED. Back when there was no armor on vehicles either. Back when old Rumsfeld.
Just crazy to think about.
like we literally had, it was like Mad Max. We had a 5-ton dump truck that we had an APC that was like cut in half, welded to the back of that, and we fit a whole squad in that. Our driver who ended up getting wounded when we got hit by an IED, he, like, on the door, and I'll show you a picture later. It was a like thin piece of steel with a flak jacket on top of that. Nothing for the window, so he took some shrapnel to the face. Yeah, it was the Wild West back then.
Yeah.
In fact, one time, like, I remember, it's always a funny story. We were caught in traffic. I was on the 50 cal in the rear vehicle on this. We called it Creeping Death. That was the name of our truck. So I'm holding traffic back in this.
It's kind of how you guys did your missions too, right?
Yeah.
You were basically doing route clearance for most of them.
So for that deployment, we were doing a lot of, it was PSD before PSD was a term, personal security
okay.
detail.
Yeah.
So we were with EOD. So when a 9-line UXO report, or when a unit saw an IED or unexploded ordnance, they would call it in. They would go to EOD. We'd go with EOD. We'd be their support.
Okay.
Whether we'd help with demo, we'd help with security. We were their internal security.
Was that true for the entire battalion?
No, that was just our company, Alpha Company.
I got it. Okay.
And I think Charlie Company took that mission over. Like, at one point, our mission changed, but for the first 7-8 months of it, that was our mission. And so, like, yeah, there was one day we had traffic stopped or whatever, and this car was weaving, and I'm like giving the hand signals, telling him to stop. I ended up shooting him, I shot the hood of the car. Like, I try not to kill people if they don't need to be killed.
Sure.
So I shot the hood of the car, and then, like, they get on the radio, like, what was that? Stemmler shot another car. All right, let's get out of here. And then we just moved on. Versus, like, later in the war, like 2008, like, you pull a trigger and you're in front of a panel of sergeant majors and colonels explaining why you pull the trigger.
Really?
Yeah, it got weird.
Yeah, that's an overcorrection.
Yeah.
A completely unnecessary overcorrection.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. Creeping Death. Did you come up with that name?
No, I think it was the unit before us, the unit we relieved. I think it was already like painted on the back.
Oh, got it.
And we just inherited it. but we were doing all kinds of like our Humvees, like before they had the turtleback shells, like it was basically an open back where we put steel that like would go mid thigh. It was like false sense of security, like an IED would rip through it, but like it made you feel safe.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, when you say IED, are you talking about the EFPs?
this is before the EFP, so
Okay.
yeah, just regular improvised explosive devices, roadside bombs.
Yep.
In fact, but the whole war, so I did 4 tours total, 3 in Iraq/Kuwait, and then 1 in Qatar. But it was always a cat and mouse game. So like in 04, the insurgents didn't have their, I guess they were still learning us, right? So we got ambushed. The incident where we got blown up was, so there was this intersection coming, like it was a couple miles from our base. We called it 5 points because it had 5 roads coming off of it. It was a traffic circle. And call came in that there was an IED there. So we get with the OD. We're en route up MSR Tampa, main supply route Tampa, and boom, we got hit. And once we
hit by an IED,
yeah. And we believe it was intended for EOD because they had a bounty on their head, but they had like a jammer, and I think we were right outside the bubble of their jammer. So as the bubble cleared, it went off and hit the front of our vehicle. So it kind of blew up in between our vehicles, and we just kind of ran into it, kind of deal.
Yeah.
But once we regrouped, reconsolidated, they went back out. Like my truck, we didn't go back out. We were gonna check out aid station and whatnot. They went back out. It was a decoy. So they were watching us to see our reaction. They knew we'd come. They'd hit us here, and then like there was no gunfire. Like it was basically, all right, here's your TTPs, your techniques, tactics, procedures. Here's how you react to us doing this to you. And then they,
So they weren't a dumb in
No. In fact, so then like 2006, talk about overcorrection. So 04, no armor. 06, too much armor. Like
too much, like you couldn't last because of the gas problem? Or?
No, well, that and like our Humvees were overweighted. The doors were so heavy that like they kept breaking because they were like starting to sag.
Oh gosh.
Because they were so heavy. Like went from no armor to like too much armor.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know if you have too much armor, but it was just, this is before the MRAPs came out, the mine resistant vehicles, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, what do we do? Let's just throw armor on these vehicles. And so then they started, I don't know if you see the old pictures. There's like it was like this long thing that came off the Humvees. We could call it like a Rhino or whatever.
Yeah.
But basically, we hit off that long thing. There was a box with a glow plug, because they were starting to use like laser initiated IEDs. So like the thought process was, if that could set off the IED, then it would blow up before it hits your vehicle, kind of deal.
Yep.
So what they start angling it towards the vehicle. Like it was all just cat and mouse.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh, the Americans doing this, we'll do this. Oh, okay. Americans counter. Okay, we'll counter this. And it was just back and forth.
Your 06 deployment, who was that with?
That was so that was with O'Farrell's unit.
Okay.
So that was the 654th MP company.
Okay. I
Which is funny because I think there was one MP in the whole company. Like it was basically an all volunteer company it was mostly infantrymen, artillery, and engineers. A lot of 276 guys that wanted to get back in the fight were there. I think it actually started as the artillery unit that got reflagged, and then like you added everybody else, kind of deal.
Yeah.
To plus it up.
So if we weren't at war, the next 2 years everybody's going to school, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I can't remember if I told you this on the phone. So I was reading Chris Kyle's book, The American Sniper.
Yeah.
And he talks about that, like when he was in Baghdad in 06, and he talked about working with the Arkansas National Guard doing personal security for the Iraqi Prime Minister. We relieved the Arkansas National Guard doing security for the Iraqi Prime Minister, and we had SEALs in our detail. So as I'm like reading this, I was like, this is our deployment. Like this is us.
Wow.
And in fact, our SEALs then rotated off of our mission to go to Ramadi, which is where Chris Kyle became famous.
Yeah.
And in fact, the big famous sniper that Chris Kyle killed, obviously like telephone game, intel, can be wrong, or you get like a piece of intel and this is what, the rumors spread, kind of deal.
Yeah.
I was just an E5 at the time, and I remember that they said that it was a female Iranian Olympic sharpshooter, which I didn't know that was a thing. And I think in the American Sniper movie, they talk about it's a Syrian Olympic sharpshooter or whatever. So pretty similar intel. But again, as I'm reading this, I'm just like, this is us.
Yeah.
And I think they said, so with the deployment, we deployed as a company, as a National Guard company, but they basically attached us to other companies to form a battalion. So we didn't know anybody else in the battalion. Like there's units from Fort Lewis, there's units from wherever, just to make this quote unquote battalion. And that sniper allegedly killed 8 in our battalion in 2 weeks.
Oh God.
It got to the point where like the term "death before dismount" was a thing. It's like if you're exposed, the sniper's gonna get you, kind of deal. But that sniper that Chris Kyle killed is apparently the same sniper.
Yeah.
So like as I'm reading this, I was like, I was there.
It's wild.
Yeah. Small world.
And those 8 kills in 2 weeks, or those 8 KIAs, was that in Ramadi?
That was Baghdad.
Wow.
Yeah. Or we might have had units in. It was that whole region, that central Iraq region.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like again, don't know the authenticity of a lot of this because again, rumor mill amongst Joes. There was rumor that like the little slit on the gunner's turret where the barrel goes through, like a gunner took a round through that. I remember there was one time. So me and O'Farrell, again, being like, I guess the hard chargers, I didn't like being in a vehicle. I'd rather have a fighting chance, especially after being blown up by IEDs.
Yeah, because your mobility is limited to what the driver's doing.
Right. So there was one mission we had to escort. It was like some female lieutenant. We had to like take her to the airport in Baghdad to buy up, and we got bogged down in traffic. So I was a TC, the truck commander, in one vehicle. O'Farrell hopped out of his vehicle and was like trying to move traffic, get us going. So I hop out too. Like no point in him being out there by himself, right? So I get out and like, well, at first like the lieutenant's like, she's yelling at me. She's like, "You tell that guy to get back in his truck." I was like, "Sure." I get out and I'm like doing whatever with him, and she's like, "You can't be doing that." I was like, "We're good," and we just moved on.
Yeah, you're actually trying to be productive,
right? There's another funny time. Me and O'Farrell, we were both in the rear vehicle on this one mission. We were linking up with a striker unit, and this is on Haifa Street in Baghdad, which there's been some notorious firefights on that street. In fact, there was, I don't know how many stories, but there's like high-rise buildings and you see bullet holes going up like 12 stories high. Like, like this place is a war zone. And so we're in this rear vehicle on this like column, and like the point vehicle is linking up with the striker, and our lieutenant says he wants me and O'Farrell up to link up with them. But our vehicle is rear security. So like we dismount and we're like running like a couple hundred yards. And I'm looking at these buildings. I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And it was like eerily quiet. Like it was the weirdest thing. We get up there and they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't need you guys."
Oh.
So me and O'Farrell run back to our vehicle.
Oh. I might have punched somebody.
Yeah. It was good times.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. What was the premise for why they needed you in the first place?
I don't know. Well, he was the platoon sergeant, so I don't know why, but they're like, "Hey, we need you up here." And of course, like I said, I think we had the 50 cal on our vehicle, so like that had to be the rear vehicle. So we couldn't just drive up there.
Yeah.
So we run.
Wow. Yeah, Haifa did get a lot of action
yeah.
during the entire war, I guess, that 9-year span.
Yeah. In fact, I think it was right after we left, it made the news. There was like a 9-hour firefight on Haifa Street.
Yeah.
And it was like it was a week after we left.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And then 08, who were you with?
Delta 3rd and 116th.
Oh, okay. So that was 08?
Yeah. Yeah. So the other units, yeah. So the whole battalion was in the Iraq Kuwait area.
So you're in the weapons company.
Yep. So
okay.
So after I got back in 04, 229th Engineers dissolved and it turned into Delta Company 3rd and 116th. So it actually branched out to I think an MP company, Delta, and I think an Intel company.
I can tell you exactly what it was because I was the S3.
There you go.
I was the last S3 for that engineer battalion, and I was there for the transition to the brigade.
I got my little coin and everything.
The Brigade Special Troops Battalion, and we had Alpha Company was engineers, so we did keep engineers. Bravo was MI, Charlie was communications or signal, and then Delta Company for 3rd and 116th ended up being in that armory, and I guess some of the soldiers from the engineer unit went there.
They gave us a choice. They're like, you can stay engineer, you can go to one of these, and I chose infantry.
Yeah. It's good choice. Yeah, not to offend the communications guys or the MI guys, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially, again, like I joked earlier about like having the specialty skill badges. The infantry gets all the fun stuff. Airborne, Pathfinder, Air Assault, like all that fun stuff.
First shot at all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mountain Warfare, which I didn't do till a couple years ago.
Was it Farrell he was in Charlie Company in 3rd Battalion.
Yeah. So when we got back from that, I think he had made a deal to go back to recruiting, realized I think he talked about it a little bit on when he was talking to you, but realized he wanted to go back to war again.
Yeah.
So he went back, and then I think they had an opening for a first sergeant slot or whatever, because he got promoted to master sergeant on our deployment.
Okay.
It was a weird dichotomy, because we were a makeshift unit. Like, we had a platoon sergeant who was a master sergeant. We had like 2 sergeant majors.
Yeah.
My squad, we had 3 fire teams in a squad. It was like a plus size platoon. We had a E6 and like I forget. I think my whole team at one point was all sergeants. Like, I was in charge of 2 other sergeants.
Yeah.
Like, because we were a volunteer unit, we were drawing from slots from other units across the state.
And you could do ±2 ranks for duty positions, that
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like, but it was one of those things where, like, one of my dude was a medic, so he took an E5 slot in a medic unit. So we weren't taking slots from that unit. So we had a ton of sergeants in the platoon.
That's wild. So what was the mission for Delta Company?
So I ended up on a Sec 4 mission. So we were down in Kuwait.
Okay.
It was a speed port of debarkation, or SPOD. Basically, where all of the war's equipment was coming into was that port. And so we were security force, basically in charge of protecting it.
So as far as missions go, pretty boring.
Yes.
Mission. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, maybe the most boring, right? Because you're not in Iraq.
Yeah.
And looking back, you're probably like, hey, it's not all bad, because
Well, especially at one point. So while that's where all the equipment is going in, it's also where all the equipment is going out. And you mentioned the EFPs, the explosively formed projectiles. So basically, it would cut through armor like butter. And that was what the in-charges were using. So all the vehicles that are blown up by those EFPs, we had to see them all coming out. And it's like, well, I'm kind of glad I'm not up there.
Yeah, I mean, let's be detailed here.
Yeah.
They would blow through almost anything.
Yep.
Inches thick metal, steel, and obviously it would take out engine blocks or worse, people.
And there was telltale signs that we learned on whether or not soldiers were killed in those vehicles. Like, they would remove the seats, or like there were certain things that like the other vehicles didn't have. They're like, oh, people died in this one.
Well, let's remind the world that EFPs were brought to Iraq by the Iranians.
Mm-hmm.
They developed the science behind it, and they trained the Iraqi insurgents to use them.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah, so you went from a couple of pretty active
Yeah.
deployments in, no kidding, combat zone to
With
Sec 4 in Kuwait.
with no break, essentially. So the first deployment, I was home for 6 months before I went again to Baghdad, and then I was home for a month, and I went with Delta Company.
Oh gosh.
So it was one of those things. So like, I mean, we got back, I think, March, and I stayed at Fort Dix to do like what was it called back then? WLC Warrior Leader course, the sergeant's course.
Yep.
And then as soon as I got home from that, it was like May, and the unit was spinning up in June, and so basically it's one of those things where like they're like, you don't have to go, and I was like, well, if everybody else is going, I'm going.
Had you met your wife?
No, it was before all that.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where like we didn't know what the mission would be. It was just like, hey, they're going back to war. They're gonna go without you. And I was like, no, they're not. Like, I'll waive whatever I need to waive. I'm going back. And so so I had a month break and was back in it.
But you're in Vietnam. You were in. No, sorry. I don't know why. I'm glad I didn't fully say that. You were in Kuwait.
Yeah.
Right. Which was a letdown, I'm sure, in many ways.
Well, in fact, there were several times where I was in communication with O'Farrell, and we were trying to get me up to his company, and it just didn't work out. My commander didn't sign off on it, kind of deal.
Yeah.
I was trying to get back in the fight. It just wasn't happening.
Was the entire battalion in Kuwait?
No, it was just Delta and a Fox company. This the forward support company.
Yeah.
I think they were doing like they were going back and forth kind of deal.
The other companies got farmed out to other units.
Yeah. So I know Charlie Company, where O'Farrell was. I think they were into Crit and other places. I don't know what the other companies did. But I think a lot of them are doing like the convoy security stuff, which is basically IED magnets.
Who's your company commander for that one?
Tyranny.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you a fun story after. Okay. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Delta Company had some cool weaponry.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't really get to do much with that stuff. Like, in between the 04 and 06 deployment, we started doing it. Like we were getting the tow missiles and all that stuff and starting to learn that stuff. And then I left for the deployment. And again, I was back for a month and then went again. So I never really got to do much of that.
Yeah.
And when I got back from that third deployment, I was burnt out. Like I was so done with it. But I just reenlisted for the tax-free signing bonus while I was over there.
Well, how many years did you have in at that point?
6.
So not that long. A
Yeah.
lot of guys get out after 4,
Right.
5, 6.
Right.
Especially if you deployed as much as you had.
Well, and it's like, again, the letdown of the deployment, like I had to think about it. And basically I was like, I had 5 good years up to this time. And this was a bad year. I didn't like it. I was burnt out. But I was like, you had 5 good years. Don't let one like ruin it. So I reenlisted, got 15 grand tax free.
Yeah.
And then, but when I got back, Roger Krause, there was a weird situation. So when the 654th disbanded, so again, we were a piecemeal unit, all volunteers. And I had jumped on the other deployment. When we came off active duty, since I didn't really belong to a unit anymore, unbeknownst to me, they assigned me to the unit closest to my house, which was on paper, I was a drone operator. I was a UAV operator. But I didn't know this until I got back from my third deployment in 08. And I hit up my residency. I was like, hey, can I go to this school? Can I do this? Can I do this? And he's like, I don't have you in my books. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not in my books? Then I started getting emails about like drill and some unit in like at Belvoir. I'm like, I'm not in your unit. He's like, oh yeah, we got you right here. You're a 35, whatever it was at the time. It was like a UAV operator. I was like, I'm an infantryman. Like, what are you talking about? And so like I did one drill with them, and it was like the most bizarre thing ever. Like again,
how did that happen?
So for whatever reason, when we came off active duty, they just assigned you to the unit closest to your home of record, which happened to be that unit, versus putting me.
It seems silly,
right? Even though like I was with the Fredericksburg unit, deployed. I was in the Fredericksburg unit, deployed again. You think they put me back in the Fredericksburg unit? But no, they put me close to the home of record, which happened to be that. And
that's dumb, by the way.
100%. I mean, as I've learned, the military does a lot of dumb things.
Sure.
And of course, you're just a number. There's a 1.2 million soldiers in the army, and it's like
you have a background, and we can put you as a widget right over here.
I felt it's like the guy in Office Space. I'm like, they put me in the basement. I'm like, I haven't seen my paycheck. Have you seen my stapler? Like, have you seen my rifle?
There should be a movie, the military version of Office Space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kept fighting it for months and months and months, and then I had to go to one drill with them. Like it was again coming from combat arms, 3 deployments under my belt, and a bunch of intel drone operators. Like at the time, I had air assault, and in fact, one time like I emailed their residency. I was like, so Krause, while I was in this limbo, he's like, hey, I'm going to send you to air assault school. I was like, okay, I don't know how you're going to do that, but sure. And because he was trying to get me to go to the RTI, the Regional Training Institute, which is a instructor unit.
That's where he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, once because I had done like some 2-week like they call it ADOS orders, so active duty for operational support.
Yeah.
And while I was there, like they have the air assault obstacle course there. He like printed out some pictures, like, hey, go try these, don't get caught and don't get hurt. And then I came back, I was like, yeah, I think I could do those. He's like, all right, I'm sending you to air assault school. It's like, I don't know how you're doing that, but cool. So I emailed the UAV readiness NCO, and I was like, hey, I'm not going to drill, I'm doing this. And he's like, all right, good luck. Like, so I ended up going to one drill with them, and I had the air assault badge and I had the combat action badge, which was funny going back to that second deployment where while there was a bunch of infantrymen in that unit, nobody could get the CIB because per the regs, you have to be an 11B slot or 18 series slot. So like until O'Farrell's third deployment, he had a CAB, and he got a CIB on the third deployment or his second deployment. But anyway, so like, but literally these people were like, what is that on your like? I'm like, that's air assault, like one of the most common badges in the army.
Yeah.
And they're like, is that a helicopter? Like, what is? I'm like, I need to get out of here. Like, this is insane.
It sounds right.
So then, so funny thing happened actually. So we kind of talked about this earlier before the podcast about how like the unfortunate thing, I guess in life, but in the military is it's who you know kind of deal. And I got an email randomly saying my combat action badge from 2004 was just approved. And this is like 08. Well, because the CAB wasn't, it didn't exist until I think 05, 06.
Okay.
So like So they had to retroactively basically award us from the 04
A lot
deployment.
of administrative stuff that
Yeah.
needed to happen. Yeah.
But by then I'd already earned it in 06.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as I'm emailing this guy back, he worked in the JAG, and so I didn't realize as I saw like, or not JAG, IG,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Inspector General. So as I saw his signature line, I was like, yeah, so I already got my CAB awarded. You can only get one, so don't worry about it. But I had this other issue, and by the next month, I was transferred to the RTI. So he fixed whatever that situation was and got me back to the unit that I was supposed to be at.
Yeah, but the IG can do a lot of fun things, but it's not like their customer service
Right.
800 number.
Right. Well, this guy had deployed with us in 04.
So
and he got to the IG, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I had this connection, and like I kind of knew who he was. He knew who I was, and I was like, "Hey, but I got this other issue. If you're willing to look at it."
I mean, so for younger people that are listening to this, and even older people like me, it is absolutely who you know makes things happen.
Yeah. And it was just on a whim that I saw his signature line said IG, and I was like, "Hey, maybe this is in your scope of practice. Can you fix this?"
Or at least sphere of influence.
Yeah, exactly. And then within a month I was transferred to the RTI.
And so what month and year was that? Ish.
January of or December of 08, January of 09, something like that.
I can't remember when I ended up at RTI.
I remember you in 2010. So yeah, actually it was funny because Kraus had also sent me to Rappel Master course before I was even in the unit. And then when I got transferred so I went to Rappel Master in December of 08. I think my transfer went through in January of 09, and then I was teaching Rappel Master like right away. But yeah, so in 09, I learned about the Army Combatives program. So I'd been an MMA fighter. I had a background. I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. So I went to, back then they were called level 1 through 4. And so I went to level 1, went to level 2. I went to level 3, which is down at Fort Benning. Level 1 and 2 can be in-house. Level 3 and 4 were at the schoolhouse at Fort Benning.
Yep.
And I went down there and I ended up getting honor grad, which is the way they did honor grad was the way most should be done. So there's not academic, nothing like that. You had to fight for it. Like I think in level 3, we kind of nominated different weight classes. Like, all right, you're going to fight for honor grad. So I ended up winning. I got honor grad. And then, so while we were there, part of being a combatives level 3 is you have to learn how to referee. So combatives tournaments and stuff, you're now qualified to referee it. And so they were advertising. I think I was there in February, and it was a 4-week course. So I was there all of February, and I think the All National Guard Combatives Tournament was in March. So they were advertising, hey, we need refs. And the way my brain works is like, I could ref that, or I can compete. So, and it was a funny story. Speaking of discipline and weight cutting that we talked about earlier, I had MMA fight on Saturday. I think the weigh-ins for the combatives tournament were on Thursday. I lost MMA fight by decision. A decision that I thought I should have won.
How many rounds?
3 rounds. I think it was 3-minute rounds.
Okay.
Maybe it's 5. I think it's 3-minute rounds.
Pretty exhausting though.
Yeah. It went the distance. Lost by decision. It was a close one. Even looking back on it, I was like, maybe I lost. Like it was a very close fight. But a lot of people thought I should have won. So I was already angry. And so, my brother, I gotta give much credit to my brother Josh, who, again, he was training with me at the time. It was a place called Gold Medal Grappling in Woodbridge, and lost the fight on Saturday. Sunday, I was back cutting weight again because I knew I had this tournament coming up Thursday. We went to practice Tuesday night, and for practice, it's usually a 3-hour ordeal. Like it could be, an hour of wrestling, hour of jiu-jitsu, hour of Muay Thai, whatever, right? And we went. I think it was Tuesday night we went to practice. I think 3 or 4 in the morning, we started driving to Fort Benning. And I'm cutting weight, so I'm miserable. I'm struggling to do anything. And so he drove most of the way, and he's tired too. And at one point, I think we're right outside Atlanta, and he's like falling asleep. He's like, hey, dude, can you drive? I was like, yeah, sure, I got this. I lasted maybe 45 minutes. I'm like, dude, I'm dying. Like, you need to drive again. He's like, what the? Because
you had, 2 hours from Atlanta to
yeah. So I was struggling from the weight cut and everything. So I get down there, I make weight, and then I ended up winning the tournament.
Yeah, you choked the guy out in the finals.
Right? Yeah. So, and it was a cool concept. So the way the tournament works, there's no gender, male or female. I ended up fighting a female in one round, but the
which is a little weird, right?
It is. So, and I joked, I told Josh, I was like, if I lose, like, you're going to turn my gear in because I'm not going back to the unit. Kind of deal. And it was one of those funny things where, like, you could tell when people warm up like how legit they are. I saw her warming up and doing her little jujitsu warm ups and everything. I was like, oof, don't want to mess with her. And then I was looking at the bracket and I found out what her name was. And I was like, oh, I got her next. Shit. I ended up beating her. I ended up choking her out, but I was beating her 18-0 before that. Yeah. But I was so nervous. But the way a tournament worked was the prelims were jiu-jitsu. So you're in your Army uniform, and it's just regular jiu-jitsu.
You're not wearing your blouse, though.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so regular Army uniform.
Lots of things to grab onto.
Yep. And I got an interesting story about that from another tournament. But yeah, so regular jiu-jitsu, I won all my matches by submission. When the semifinals and the consolation semis were pancration rules, so you can is grappling, submission grappling still, but you can open hand to the face and close fist to the body. You can knee and kick to the body, and so it gets a little more violent.
And you're not wearing any headgear.
Nope, you're just wearing shin pads.
Yeah,
and that's it.
You have anything on your
no
hands?
Not for the pancration rules.
Okay.
And then the finals were straight MMA.
Wow.
You're in a cage, and you had shin pads on and your Army pants over that, and you had MMA gloves, and that's it. Yeah, so, and I am winning all my matches by submission. And my brother likes to joke that he's a national champion coach now.
Is he older or younger?
He's younger.
Okay.
By 6 years.
Okay.
But yeah, so I ended up winning that. And again, it was on that whim of like, I could ref or I can just do this.
Yeah, you don't hesitate. Right?
No.
You're like, yep. Oh, that's a thing. Sounds interesting or sounds appealing to me. I'm just going to go.
100%. And it goes back to, life's short, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way I live my life in general is like, I don't believe in a bucket list. People talk about, oh, I always want to do this. And I'm just like, do it. Like, I get there's financial constraints. Like, got it. Like skydiving. I came back from my 4th deployment and I think I'd done a tandem before and I was like, I want to do that. So I had the extra money from the deployment and I'm like, I'm going to do it. But yeah, like, and as people are like, oh, I always wanted to see the Grand Canyon. Like, oh, if you got the money, like, what are you doing this weekend? Like, just do it. Like,
yeah. What are you waiting for?
Yeah. And so that's generally how I live my life. Same with scuba diving. Like, I became a scuba diver. On my 4th deployment, I actually got my certification in the Persian Gulf.
Nice.
And because there was an MWR flyer, like, you can do this, and I was like, sure, well, let's do it.
Is there anything that was interesting to you that you haven't done?
No. Like if I've wanted to do it, I just do it.
Go do it.
Yeah. In fact, we were talking about this off air. Well, it was at age 40, I picked up probably the most complex sport you can pick up of ice hockey. I've never played hockey in my life. I played a little street hockey as a kid, but like
that's different.
Yeah. But I've ice skated a little bit, just open skate in a circle kind of deal.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to stop. I took my daughter to watch a Police versus Fire. They have an annual game, and I was watching. And I was like, I could do this, and I'll play next year's game. And so that was my goal, and I bought the equipment, watched a lot of YouTube, and went out there and got into a league. And most people, I've been playing for 8 months now, but even back when I first started, like, nobody could tell I've never played before, and it was just bizarre. But again, it was
pretty cool.
But again, it was just on a whim of like, I could do that.
Does your wife have a high tolerance for how you are?
Oh yeah. She's like,
she knew pretty much right away, right?
I always joke, I was like, you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. How long did y'all date?
So met in 2009, got married in 2016.
Okay.
So quite a while. I think she moved in.
She definitely knew. She definitely knew who she was marrying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and back then, or early on, before we had kids and everything, being at the RTI, like, I was TDY a lot. There was a lot of opportunities to travel, because one of the things that we taught was Rappel Master course, which for anybody listening, that's basically if you see like a rappel tower, there's somebody that hooks you up to the rope and sends you off. That's a Rappel Master. And so for the Army, we were the ones that made Rappel Masters. People came to us, they left, if they graduated, they became Rappel Masters.
It's one of the cool things that 1st Battalion did.
Yeah. 100%. And in fact, fun fact, I learned this along the way. At one point, I think it was like 2009 or so, maybe 2010, somewhere in there, we were the only accredited Rappel Master instructors in the Army. And
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, to include like Fort Campbell, Fort Benning, all that. And there was like 6 of us. So the op tempo for instructors was insane, because I would teach a 2-week infantry course, and then like I'd go home for a week and I'd teach another 2-week infantry course. But then sometimes like the course would graduate on Saturday, but Saturday, those of us that were Rappel Masters were flying somewhere to go teach that.
Yeah.
And then we come back and teach another infantry course, and then fly somewhere else to teach another rappel master. And yeah, it was insane. But so I was traveling quite a bit back then. So yeah, she got used to, I guess, my craziness.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's all good. Well, she loves your
Yeah,
craziness.
yeah. Well, and I think O'Farrell told me this once before, and like she's mentioned it too, where like I mean, I kind of live that jack of all trades kind of mindset, but master of none, right? So, and I always wonder, like, if I actually applied myself to one thing and just focused on it, like,
you'd be bored out of your mind.
100%. That's what they've both said.
Yeah.
Like that's not my style.
It'd be horrible for you.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the national championship, and you and I were on the phone, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and tell the story of you getting an award from First Battalion.
So and honestly, it's interesting with the way the RTI was set up. Is so unlike normal army units, like it's basically all enlisted, and we have an officer for some reason who just happens to be there.
Who is, in my opinion, I was in that position, horribly overranked.
Yeah, well, because it was a lieutenant colonel position.
Yeah,
and so we don't have a captain. There's no major. It goes from E8 to lieutenant colonel.
It's pretty locked.
And so the concept of a battalion, again, there's what, 10 instructors at most.
I think there were 11 or 12.
Yeah,
total.
right.
Yeah,
and they were all supposed to be E6 and above. I think I was an E5 at the time. So we're all NCOs, and then we have an E8, and then lieutenant colonel. And so this is a battalion. So a typical
it's technically a battalion.
Yeah, and so a typical battalion is what, 500 soldiers?
When I was 3rd Battalion commander, we were 600 plus, and if you include the forward support company, you were in the 700.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have multiple companies. You have in each company you have multiple platoons, the whole 9 yards. We had 11 people for a battalion, and so like I got back from winning that tournament, and I guess Sergeant First Class Homer put me in for an ARCOM, an Army Commendation Medal, and we rarely had formations anyway. Like that.
I wasn't calling a formation unless we needed one.
Right. Like I think I spent a total of over 2 stints, like 7 years at the RTI, and I think I've had maybe 2 formations.
So you were the reason for one of the 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I'm like, why do we have a formation? Like this is weird. And then I kind of heard something about an award. I was like, oh, it's probably for me. And then yeah, so we get down there, and at the time you were changing out with your replacement. Was it Cox?
Yeah, it was Cox. Yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel Cox.
Yeah.
And
good dude.
Yeah,
really good dude.
Special Forces guy.
Yeah.
I actually hooked him up. So sidetrack.
Cox and I went to the same high school. By the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in 2013, I worked for the Washington Redskins back when they were called that, and I think his kids came out to like training camp. So I directed a couple of players, his kids away to get some autographs and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, so you guys were changing over, and we had this formation, and it was the funniest thing. Like by formation, we're standing in one line because there's no ranks.
We were a modified squad.
Yeah, basically. And I just remember you saying, "Hey, want to see something funny? Battalion!" And it's like, my brother was joking. He was like, it'd be funny if somebody was like, company, platoon.
We could lie to you.
Yeah.
Have the EA up front.
Right.
Oh,
but yeah, a battalion of 11 people.
But I do remember a few things from that. I love the fact, from my time at RTI, I love the fact that basically we were it for Rappel Master.
Yeah.
And I was super supportive of you guys going all over the place to do that training. But you winning that championship was, I thought, one of the coolest things I had experienced in the military.
Which again, that was a whim. And it was so much of a whim that when I heard about it, like, nobody even knew that existed. The combatives program, like, it's always been the redheaded stepchild of the Army, and it's had its ups and downs. And so nobody even knew that existed. And when I brought it up, like, I was like, I'll go on unpaid orders. I just want to do it. I don't care. Like, just send me.
Yeah.
And the unpaid orders would cover you in case you get hurt, kind of deal. And I guess once that started going up the chain, they're like, let's just pay this dude. So I was on order. So basically, I was paid to go down there and win it.
Yeah. You got paid to win a national championship?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How many people get to say that?
No.
Not many.
Pros.
Right.
Well, now with the NIL in college sports.
Yeah. That's a whole weird thing. I didn't know you worked for the Redskins. What did you do for them?
So transitioning. So this actually flows right in. So yeah, 2009 went to the RTI, and I was guard bumming as they call it. So again, my whole income was just working courses. So I'd work a 2-week course here, go home for a week, work another 2-week course, and eventually the funding for that dried up. So I was like, I'll go back to college. So I went to George Mason, I had 100% of the post 9/11 GI Bill. So basically, I was getting paid to go to school. I was getting like $2,000 a month just to go to school.
Yeah, and they were paying your tuition.
Yeah, exactly. And you get an extra stipend, like an extra $500 each semester for books. Whether or not you use it, you get the money.
Yep.
So I'm like, yeah, I was just
biggest no-brainer ever.
Yeah. And I still had some like leftover money from the deployment, so I was just bumming it. And then even when I went back to college, I was still kind of like just focusing on college because I was getting paid to go to school, which I have so much respect for my classmates. So my major was athletic training or sports medicine. And so in that program, as you're going through well, it's changed now, but back then, as you start your sophomore year through your senior year, you have to do clinical hours. And each year it becomes more increasing. So you might have to start off with like 40 clinical hours, and then by your senior, you have to get 300 kind of deal. And so my classmates, like they had to also have jobs. They also had to pay for school. Like I was getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
And do the Army. I was still, in the Guard. Which also made life way harder because I'm leaving for 2 weeks here. I'm leaving for a week here while I have to study, while I have to do everything. In fact, we TDY'd Rappel Master to Hawaii.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Which should have been amazing, but I had a anatomy physiology test as soon as I got home. So like I'm in the barracks like memorizing every muscle in the body. And like, all right, are we going to Waikiki? All right, I'll go for a couple hours. Like it sucked, but I did it.
So only going on Army orders to Hawaii can lead to you not really experiencing Hawaii.
Right. The Army can ruin everything.
Yeah.
So I was going through that program.
Sorry, real quickly. You were at Schofield Barracks?
Yep.
Only the Army can find the worst part of Hawaii and put a post there.
Yeah. The one thing that always stuck in my mind, and that's the only time I've ever been to Hawaii, I haven't been for a vacation or anything, was outside the gate of Schofield, there was like a median where a guy was selling Krispy Kreme donuts. And the explanation that I got was because there's no Krispy Kreme on that island. So they had to get transported from Big Island. So he would come over in the morning and just sell them street side.
Wow.
Because it's a commodity.
Yeah. Huge commodity.
Yeah. Also, a weird thing about Hawaii, the way the architecture and like, because was it East Range? Is it? So that's where the rappel tower was and everything. So we drive into East Range and like going through the neighborhoods, it looked like Iraq. Like, I don't know if you remember like Iraq, like their fences aren't fences. It's like brick, like just like brick walls around their house kind of deal.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of how that was in Hawaii too. So like me and, another, Bridwell, like at one point we're driving and we both look at each other. We're like, is this Iraq? Like it was weird.
Yeah. Wonder why in Hawaii.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
The rainy season they would flood.
Yeah.
But I don't know that those bricks.
Maybe that helps with that. Or wouldn't it trap the water? I don't know.
Probably trapped it unless it was foolproof all the way around.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
Oh, no worries. So I was going through that program, and then George Mason, through their connections and our proximity to DC, and another advantage of being close to the flagpole was we had connections to some of the pro sports. So I had a classmate. So senior year, it was an interview. I had to go through an interview process, but basically my senior internship was, I had opportunity to work for the Washington Redskins. So I interviewed and I got the job essentially. So I was with them from OTAs, their organized team activities in like May, all the way through the end of the season. However long that ended up being.
Were they good that year?
No. 3-13.
Who was the quarterback?
So that was the RG3's return year. So the year prior he tore his ACL, and then so he did the rehab over the off season, and like this was supposed to be his big return, and it didn't go well. And I have my opinions on that, which we could talk about in a second. But so another classmate of mine, she worked for DC United. That was her internship. And I know some of my classmates will work like the CAPS developmental camps. So we had a lot of those connections through George Mason, and through sports medicine. But yeah, so basically, also some fun stories from the NFL. So when you watch an NFL game and you see a grown man squirt a water bottle in another grown man's mouth, everybody's like, oh, that's a water boy. The NFL hires water boys. That guy squirting the water bottle has a master's degree in sports medicine. The NFL's cheap, I learned.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so basically, as an athletic trainer in the NFL, our main job is behind the scenes. Like we're doing the rehab every day, before practice, after practice. We're taping the ankles. We're doing all that stuff. That's what the public doesn't see. At practice, our main job is hydration. Like we're walking around with cans of Gatorade and water, and like we're handing it out kind of.
Yeah.
Same with game day. In fact,
because your job is about rehab and wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, when it came to like after I left that season, and now I know who's who in the zoo on the sideline, I would see somebody get injured, and like it would be the team doctors going out to check on the injury. Well, the head athletic trainer who makes like 200,000 stands there with a pen and paper and just like jot stuff down. But it's not till we get behind the scenes, we get back to the locker room, that the athletic trainers take over, kind of deal.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a funny story. There was one game. So again, I was an intern, so like game day, I was in charge of the Gatorade coolers. Like I'm making sure it's stocked, make sure I'm doing whatever.
You were the water boy.
Basically, yes. So at the end of the game, I had to dump out the coolers, and at FedEx Field, the grate for to dump them out was like right where the fans start, right at that wall. And so I'm dumping it out, and this drunk fan's like, "Hey, water boy, let me." So this is a salute to service game, so it's like these Gatorade like multicam towels.
And you're ironically a 4-time deployed guy.
Yeah. And so, well, that time it was just 3. But, yeah. And so like, he's like, just, "Hey, water boy," just being a drunk jerk. And so I was like, "Well, sir, policy, I can't hand those out. It is what it is. Sorry, man." I had a buddy who was also a Virginia Guardsman at the time. He was a police officer for whatever counties that's at. I think it's Montgomery County, maybe. And he was working the sideline detail. And so I took a stack of towels. I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, bud, you want some free towels?" I stared at that fan and just like walked to the locker room. It's like, if you were nice to me, I probably would have gave you some.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, you wanted to be a "Hey, water boy." Like,
yeah, he was making fun of you.
Yeah. So
he doesn't deserve any of that.
Right. So yeah, so the NFL like has multiple roles for people. So like, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's videos I've seen circulating with the get back coach, quote unquote. So the strength and conditioning staff, like obviously their main job is in the weight room. On game days, their whole job is to make sure the coaches don't go on the field. Like they're grabbing them by the belt, like, and holding them on the sideline. So the NFL kind of like makes you do other stuff on game days, kind of deal.
Yeah, it's weird.
Even when it comes down to player salaries. So like Alfred Morris, you familiar? So great dude. So he, the year before I got there was his rookie year. He was number 2 rushing in the league, just behind Adrian Peterson. I think he had like 1,600 yards.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah. He said, so back then, the way the rookie contract was structured, like league minimum was 400,000. After taxes, that half of that's gone. Agent fees, the whole 9 yards. He made less than $100,000 that year in a position where the average lifespan is 3 years.
Maybe 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, he's one of the guys that I feel so bad for. One of the nicest guys ever, very talented running back. He had like I think his first 3 seasons was like 1,500 yards. Then the Redskins stopped using him. Like they just phased him out for whatever reason. Like nobody knows why. And then he got traded he either got traded or got picked up by Dallas. And I'm a lifelong Cowboys fan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I was like, heck yeah, like welcome to the team. It was the year they drafted Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah. And Zeke was amazing the first few years. Yeah.
And in fact, I think it was the next year Zeke got suspended and Alfred filled in and was amazing for those games. And then the Cowboys phased him out. And he just gradually phased out of the league. I think he ended up in San Francisco, ended up in New York, and then now he's not in the league anymore.
Yeah.
But very talented, nice guy. And it's just, for whatever reason, they phased him out.
It's weird.
Yeah.
There's how the money moves and who's going to be paying the person in the 4th year is paying their retirement or something weird like that.
Or then you see like baseball where they have like 10-year contract, 15-year contracts, and it's like, how does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But they do them. Baseball does it all the time. You were talking about RG3's comeback year, and you had some thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, so it was having the inside scoop, and even when you just take an objective look at it, right? So it was funny
because he was really good his rookie year.
He was, and there was drama there with the head coach Shanahan. He didn't want to draft him. He wanted Kirk Cousins, and they ended up drafting both,
which is crazy.
Yeah, and so you got
it's part of the reason they haven't been good in a long time.
You got a talented guy, RG3, who had a style of play that was good enough to get him to Baylor University, good college. That same style was good enough to get him the Heisman Trophy, best football player in the country. That same style was good enough to get him I think it was number 2 draft pick that year.
Yep.
All based on that style got him there. Got him the rookie of the year that year. And then the next year they said, everything you've done your whole life, I want you to change.
Yeah.
You're now a pocket passer. He's never been a pocket passer.
Nope.
And so, and that showed. Like he wasn't comfortable in the pocket. He couldn't make reads.
It's dumb.
Yeah.
Put him in that position. Let him be what he flourishes as.
Which could have been Shanahan just trying to get rid of him. But it got to the point where like we'd be in the athletic training room and like we'd have Sports Center on the TV. As soon as that subject came up, he'd walk out of the room. Like he didn't want to see it, didn't want to talk about it.
I bet, sure.
And yeah, it just became like seeing the inside scoop on some of that stuff. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I've talked to a handful of people that have worked in organizations. One was with the Skins, and behind the scenes is kind of wacky.
It was interesting. So like so at the end of the year, and this happens from what I understand in pretty much every locker room, like they'll tip out the staff, like because they obviously make a lot of money. We make less money. I was an unpaid intern, so like there was like a pool of money where like the players contributed, and they're like they had their names like, hey, these guys, they appreciate the work you've done. Here you go, kind of deal. Awesome. Then like certain players like D'Angelo Hall, great guy. He one day
from Virginia.
Yeah. I was in the athletic training room in the morning setting something up, and he's like, hey man, I got something for you in my locker. So he's like, come with me. I was like, okay. He was like apologetic. He's like, man, I ran out of Christmas cards. Pulls out a bank bag and just handed me $500. He's like, man, thanks for taking care of my ankle this year. Like you did a great job.
He didn't have to do that.
No.
Yeah.
And there was one player. so again, kind of like the paid athletic trainers, they would get like an envelope with more money than what I would get, kind of deal. But they did more. It makes sense. But there was one player. There was one day I was leaving the facility. I was leaving the athletic training room, and I saw him walk to the head athletic trainer with an envelope. I was like, oh, I know what that is. Like, let me just linger around for a minute. And then he walked by me and was like, oh, hey man, gave me $100 bill. I was like, all right.
Why not?
Yeah. And then like Brian Arakpo, like at one point it got silly, and in hindsight, it could be insulting, but we were fun. Almost like we're like they're paid jesters at times. Like I walked in one day and they're like, "Hey, give you $100 to jump in the cold whirlpool." I was like that's it? How long are I stay in there? He's like, "No, you just got to jump in, and you can't change your clothes till 9:00." And it was like 7:00. I was like, "Cannonball, easiest $100 I've ever made."
Yeah.
So there was like certain things like that, and then there would be like, "All right, all the athletic training staff, like let's see who can plank the longest. Like if you can go 3 minutes, I'll give you $200, and whoever lasts the longest, I'll get you another $200." So I went to do it, and he's like, "No, this is a Arakpo." He goes, "No, he can't do it because he's in the military. He knows how not to quit." I was like,
shouldn't everybody know that?
Right. And then at one point there was this was actually kind of fun. There was staff races. So like each section, so like the PR staff, the weight room staff, the athletic trainers, the equipment people, it was like a tournament. Like we had like 100-yard sprints, and like all the players were like watching, like betting on us and stuff. And then like I made it to the finals, and I ended up taking like third, I think. But like for the finals, RG3 set a Xbox One. I think that was new at the time. It's 2013. He set one in the end zone. He's like, first one to get it wins. It's like
that's pretty wild.
Yeah. So again, like you look at it both ways. It was fun, but then like I think somebody was like, "Oh, that's kind of insulting." I was like, I didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't make problems out of
exactly.
Something's not a problem.
Exactly. It was good times.
All right, let's end with talking about your Qatar deployment. I can guess what that generally was about, and then we'll talk about your family.
Yeah. So Qatar, it was another, I guess, repeat of Kuwait. It was a Sec 4 mission. This time I had more rank. I was a platoon sergeant. So if it started off, my platoon was in charge of like the perimeter towers kind of deal. And then we got switched to the Quick Reaction Force, QRF.
What year was this?
16.
Okay.
And again, it was just trying to stay busy kind of deal. Like I think twice a week I taught a Muay Thai class and boxing class for anybody who was interested. Like they gave me the keys to the combatant's room. So at one point, I think overall I certified 160-ish soldiers in combatants level 1. And that was on top of my normal duties.
Yeah.
I got to compete in a international marksmanship competition against the Qataris, which were actually Chechens and Russians, but Qataris.
Yeah, I guess in many places in the Middle East, they just like, we're going to call you one of us because we can.
Yeah, well, especially for this, like we want to win. So, Chechens, they got good shooters.
Yeah, they do.
And so, yeah, that was fun. It was a fun experience. But it became like crazy. So at one point, I had some conflict with my platoon leader. Like it was oil and water. We just didn't get along.
It happens.
And so at one point, I just mostly to avoid him, but also it served a purpose. Was since we were working QRF as 24-hour job, nobody was ever there for our midnight people, and so like I volunteered. I was like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work with them. You work with the day shift. So we didn't have to see each other.
Yeah.
And
the night shift appreciated that.
Yeah. But it got to the point where like nobody knew how to like work that. So like I still had meetings at noon, like when I'm trying to sleep, the whole 9 yards. And then like towards the end of my rotation there, they had me like I was teaching combative. So like here's my work cycle. Like I would go to the QRF shack at like a 10 or 11 o'clock or whatever. I think at 5 in the morning I left because I was helping manage this marksmanship competition. So I'd go start that. We'd go to the other base in Qatar. I'd be doing that in the hot sun until 2 p.m. or so. And then I'd get back to our base, and then I had to teach combatives from like 4 p.m. to like 10 p.m.
So sleep.
Yeah, and this was like for 3 weeks straight.
Yeah, you couldn't have done that much longer.
Yeah. Well, it got to the point where in the QRF shack, there was beds in there too. Like, the squad leader was like, "Hey man, we got this. Go to sleep. If we need you, we'll wake you up." I was like, "Cool."
Did the Qataris want you there? Want Americans there?
I think so because money. Like, it's a rich country. It's a very weird country. So like, it's so rich that like, and we were able to go off base to go to the mall, go do whatever, and but you'd see like expensive cars like Lamborghinis crash on the side of the road. They would just leave it. Like, I'll get another one. Like that. Like, it was no big deal.
It's wild.
Like, we went to, there was one place, it was like, we found several parking garages full of like Lamborghinis and like other like high-end cars. Just, they're like, this, wow.
UAE and Qatar have, I think, the highest per capita wealth in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I spent, well, I didn't get to really spend time in Dubai. I was a couple years ago, I was going to teach in Tajikistan. We have like a state partnership program with them.
Yep.
And we had a layover. Like, I looked at my itinerary. I had I think an 8-hour and like a 13-hour layover in Dubai. And so I'm like, they have Skydive Dubai, one of the best drop zones in the world. I'm like, I'm hitting that up. They have the deepest pool in the like indoor pool in the world. Like, I think it goes like 200 something feet. It's called Deep Dive Dubai. I was like, I know there's restrictions on when you can fly after that. So, but the 13-hour layover, I was like, maybe I can work that in too. What I didn't know is I had the wrong passport. We had the brown official passport. So we're like going to leave, and they're like, no, you can't. You need the blue passport. And we're like, I have a passport. No, you have no official business in Dubai. So
wow.
I was like, so I was like Tom Hanks in Terminal. I'm like, wandering around for 13 hours in this airport.
Brutal. And you've got all these cool things not far from where you were.
Yeah.
Just couldn't go do it. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
All right. Let's end with, tell me about your wife and kids.
So my wife, same age as me. We actually met in 2009 when I was working at a sporting goods store. It was kind of in between my guard bumming. I picked up a job, working at Modell Sporting Goods store, and we just kind of hit it off and started dating for a while. Like I said, I think she probably moved in around 2013, 2014, and after everybody's like, "Why aren't you married yet? Why aren't you married yet?" Like, eventually, and I knew 2016 the deployment was looming, so proposed. She said yes. I chose.
Was that in doubt? Were you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Because y'all had talked about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's come up, and it was almost one of those things. Like, what's the point? But like, not like what you know what I'm saying? It's like, especially with the deployment coming up, it helped because now she's my legal spouse. So in terms of power of attorney, the whole 9 yards, it made sense.
Yep.
In fact, it was funny because like going through those pre-deployment things when they're treating me like I'm an 18-year-old kid. They're like, "Are you sure you want to give her the power of attorney?" I'm like, dude, like,
I'm older than 25.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah.
And there are those horror stories, but yeah, I was like, I'm not worried about that. And I chose a unique date for the marriage, which in hindsight, I'm like, it sucks in some ways because I chose February 29th. Only happens once every 4 years.
So do you do the annual math or do you do the every 4 year math?
I like to joke and do the annual math, okay. or do the 4 year math.
Yeah. So you've only been married like 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. But then where the problem lies is like, what day do you celebrate it? The 28th or the 1st?
What day do you celebrate it?
We just kind of a little bit of both. Well, so
it's a 2-day celebration.
Well, what I learned, Facebook, like, because they'll have your like yearly memories, they choose March 1st, and it makes sense because it's the day after the 28th.
Okay.
But yeah, so we do have that unique date going on there, and then after got back from that 4th deployment, she got pregnant with our first kid. It was a girl. And then we were happy with that for a while. We tried to have a second kid. It wasn't working for a little bit, and then boom, out of nowhere, we got a second kid. This time I got a boy, so that's good. And he's a tank. He's definitely going to be a bruiser. Offensive lineman, linebacker. He's wild. Which could be the fact that he's a boy. It could be the fact that
he's your boy.
He's my boy. Who knows? But he's definitely wild. And we never had the terrible twos with our first kid. We're getting double dose with him. And then 18 months after him, we got surprised again. And so we got a third now. She's 3 months old. So we're dealing with that fun adjustment.
Not a lot of sleep.
No. Well, and you know, people ask like, "Oh, how's the baby doing?" The baby's fine. Baby's doing what babies do. You know, wake up throughout the night, eat, sleep. That's what babies do. It's the toddler that's the issue right now.
Yeah.
Well, because he's at that age where he's learning his emotions. He's learning how to talk. So he's on the cusp of talking and communicating,
testing boundaries too.
And then you got the jealousy factor of like, oh, we're paying attention to the baby. We're paying attention to the older one. And so his tantrums are all over the place. Like it's like he's bipolar. Like some days we're walking on eggshells where it's like, oh, we got a good day. All right, he's happy today.
2-year-olds are, if you're not the parent, they're very entertaining.
Yeah.
And they can be entertaining for the parent too, but not all the time.
And yeah, so and then like, we see the good, and then we're like, every day is an improvement, and like we realize, from the first kid and even down to the infant, like it goes fast, and so we really we're trying to embrace all of it, but like also managing the chaos of all three.
Yeah, and the 7-year-old probably doesn't like it when you're paying attention to the toddler or the.
Well, at times I feel bad because there's times where like we live in a townhouse, so we'll be upstairs taking their infant and then taking their toddler. So the oldest is kind of down there in the living room by herself, and it's like I try the best I can to get down there and spend more time with her. But then sometimes we're like, it'll be a 2-3 hour span. And we're like, oh, I hope she's okay. Like she's like in her own world kind of deal.
Yeah.
But she's done awesome. She's adjusted well. Like she helps with the toddler a lot, especially like in the car. So because now we have 3 car seats, so she's in the middle. So she kind of helps manage both of them.
Nice.
I'm like, hey, what's going on back there? And hand him this, and so she'll sing with him and like just try to like keep him from crying. Kind of.
She's a good big sister.
Yeah, she's doing good.
That's awesome. All right, so you shouldn't predict the 3-month-old because I don't think you have any idea. But what do you think your oldest kid's going to end up?
So far, she's really into arts. Artsy. She did ballerina for a little while, so okay. She's already got some stage time doing that, and she seemed to like it. We're still trying to find her niche. Like we've tried a couple different sports. My wife, she grew up with lacrosse, so she played. Like now that I'm in hockey, I'm trying to like see if she'll get into hockey, which part of me wants it, part of me doesn't because it's a very expensive sport. But she's shown no interest. Lacrosse, we've tried a couple things, and like the problem is her age, where it's like she's trying to learn the sport, and where we live, there was like a program that like, again, growing up in sports, like I didn't think it was being managed well. So like they go out there and they might do a couple of drills, and then they're like scrimmaging, and it's like all age ranges from like 7-year-old, which is her, through like middle school.
Yeah.
And so like at one point, I even took video of this, like she's like just wandering around the field by herself.
Doesn't make any sense.
And I'm just like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
We tried swimming, and then again, mismanaged programs. Like I think that's my biggest thing is like I want to get her in something that she'll like, and that like that they can manage well. It's like swimming. There was like a learn to swim program for kids or whatever, but the student to teacher ratio was garbage. Like one teacher for like 6 or 7 kids.
Yeah.
And it's a 45-minute class. And like at one point I broke out the stopwatch. So like she's on the side of the pool waiting for her turn. She gets her turn, goes down and back, and she's sitting on the side of the pool again. So in this 45 minutes, I think she actually had like 3 minutes of instruction time. I'm like, why am I paying for this?
Yeah. It's a racket.
Yeah.
Actually.
And so it's one of those things where it's like trying to balance like I've been a coach, but like some of these things I could teach her, but like I've learned even growing up from myself, it's better to learn from a third party than it is like your parent.
Yeah.
So like I can help like reinforce what the teacher taught, but like let's learn it from somebody else, and then we'll go from there. But when you don't have that good somebody to teach them, then it's kind of like it discourages them too, because maybe she's like, swimming was stupid. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Lacrosse is stupid. I don't want to do this.
And it's not necessarily the sport. It's the process.
Right. And so that gets frustrating, but yeah, she's definitely super artsy. In fact, I think this weekend we have some at our school. Her artwork got selected for like this like art show kind of deal.
Cool.
So we're doing that.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's definitely potential there.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
What's the next year look like for your family?
We're just readjusting. Pretty busy with work, so I'm hoping. So right now I work nights. So I'm hoping here in the near future that changes, so that I can actually spend more time with family. So like in my job, we work this kind of weird schedule where it's like 5 days on, 4 days off, 5 days on, 4 days off, 5 days on, 5 days off.
Okay.
And so like 5 on 4, 5 4, 5 4, 5 5, and
and that just repeats itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you can look at the calendar a year from now, and I know exactly what days I'm working, which is great. And those 5 days off are great. But where the problem lies is, anytime that I'm working Monday through Friday, I don't see them. They don't see me.
Yeah.
Because they'll see me sleep, I see them sleep, and that's how we cross paths.
And yeah, that's not a way to be part of a family.
No.
Yeah.
And it's we could see it affecting the oldest. Even at times she's like, I don't want you to go to work. I'm like, I have to. Like, you like toys, I gotta buy the toys. I gotta get money to
buy
buy
like the roof over your head. Yeah.
And so I'm hoping to change that a little bit, and then yeah, and like I said, just figure out this whole kid thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a process. It's a journey.
Yeah, because and even part of that, the family life. That's one of the reasons why I retired from the military.
Yeah,
it was the travel, or just being gone for 2 weeks at a time here and there. It was getting tough on everybody.
And they're at formative ages.
Yeah.
Dad should be around as much as
exactly.
Yeah. Well, cool, Matt. It was great doing this, man. I appreciate you driving here once again, and I'm glad Jim and Jason connected us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Or reconnected us.
Yeah, anytime. I'll come back and do another episode sometime.
All right, I love it.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.